The point of this video is when I read, do you know, I know my arm catches on this every time. It's just, I don't know, my arm's magnetic, but it's been pointed out I have a problem with paper and arms. Yes, I really do. The point of this video is, I've already twice reviewed the Tribit Stormbox Pro. Both of them had literally very, very little bass. I got a second one because I couldn't believe how bad the first one was. They both had no bass. It turned out that there was an issue with Tribit Stormboxes at the time, Tribit Stormbox Pros, and some of them, this issue meant you weren't getting much bass. Now, Tribit didn't let everybody know about that, but if you had your ear close to the ground, you did know that. And do you know what they did? They came out with an upgraded version. They didn't come out with it yesterday or 2 months ago. They came out with it about 2 years ago, but I think I've just got around to it. Now, that's how little time I get for a lot of this stuff. But I keep going. So the upgraded version, what has actually changed? As far as I know, well, they say that was fixed. The bass was fixed. I wanted to check that out. It's gone from Bluetooth 5 to Bluetooth 5.3. The other thing was the original Tribit Stormbox Pro, aptX. This one, SBC only. So backwards, forwards, we're going to find out. Now, I thought this is a 360-degree speaker and looks very much like the Bose Revolve Plus version 2. They call it the Series 2. In some ways, I thought, for me, this was the most interesting because Tribit, like Soundcore, we know them as, they take aim at the big boys, but they do it with a bit more value. They've clearly taken aim at the Bose Revolve Plus. So you can get that for about £100, $100. Get that for about 280 quid, $300. It's about a third of the price. Is that fair? It is if we're talking about, we don't expect to be quite up to that level, but at least offer some value to that level. And anybody who gets that, I think, is also kind of eyeing, is that a value version of that? That's why I'm doing against the Bose Revolve Plus, and because I do reviews where they also interest me. I was interested in both these speakers and how they compare. Clue is, they're on the table, we're going to do it right now. So they kind of look the same, but they're not exactly the same. You're going to see a lot of this in the video. I tend to get quite sweaty. Paper seems attracted to me on. Guys, it's just something we're going to have to live with. So, they both have a downward firing woofer. Tribit like to call it a subwoofer. In my world, it ain't a subwoofer, but hey, if it's only doing some of the low frequencies, you can call it a subwoofer if you want. They both got 2 passive radiators, but the big difference here is we've also got 2 tweeters. We love tweeters. Well, a lot of you love tweeters, but sometimes it doesn't quite work out how we think it's going to work out. So downward firing woofer offering sort of all-round listening experience, consistent all-round listening experience. But the fact they've got 2 tweeters is going to mean not quite as consistent as the speaker that's a lot more expensive, that lacks tweeters. And they also have a big dome below that downward firing woofer to fire the sound out at all angles for more consistent listening. It's not completely consistent because there are little edges that go around there where you will get little dips in the sound. If you listen very carefully like that, and that's probably not how you're going to be listening to it. But it's less consistent on the Tribit Stormbox Pro. We're going to get into that. There's only one sound mode. Oh, personally, I love it when there's one sound mode. They've concentrated on getting that one sound mode correct. The Tribit Stormbox. Now, there is an app. Well, actually, I want to get onto the specs at the end of the video rather than waffle it right at the beginning. Just to let you know, there is an app and you can do some EQ on it. I'm not going to do that in this video, and maybe I'll explain that later on. And there is an X-Bass mode. Just how well that works. Obviously, what you're thinking is, oh, you just get more bass. Is that the case? Well, let's first of all have a look at the... Now, this really, I should mention first of all, I looked at the prices on... It is about 100 quid now. When I looked, it was about 120 quid, and I thought, maybe I'll ask Tribit first. I don't often ask for speakers. I did ask Tribit for this speaker, and they did send it to me. I didn't mention what I was going to do with it, or when I was going to do with it, or anything at all. Either they don't care, or they just give me a free hand, and I give a thumbs up for that. Just to let you know, I did get it for free, but I take it or leave it. It makes no difference to me in what I do or say. Well, listen to what I say about the X600 if you don't believe me, which I got for free. I'm going to show you so what I'm saying is most of the frequency response measurements are about the Tribit Stormbox Blast, because it's not the Blast. Clue is, it ain't Blast. That is the Pro. This should be mainly about this speaker because that was what I was going to review. And then as a follow-up, what am I going to do it against? I could have done it against speakers the same price. I decided that was the most interesting, and I got that one. So I haven't done either of them before. and I'm still waffling, and I'm trying to make this one quicker. So it's mainly, most of the frequency response is about this one because this video was meant to be about the speaker. Here are my frequency response measurements. Quick look at the Bose Revolve Plus version 2, and a nice spread of volume steps. Get a lot of control down in the low volume. Reasonably consistent till you hit maximum volume, where obviously you've got a drop off in the bass, but maybe more noticeable, big drop off from 2 kilohertz and above. You're basically left with some mids and a bit of upper bass. Got a big dip, 2 kilohertz to 5 kilohertz, peak 7.5 kilohertz, 15 kilohertz. So the Stormbox Pro, front on, that means tweeters to the sides, bass on, bass off. First thing to look at is you hit the bass on, it's going louder. It's doing that old trick, fooling you to think it's doing something more dynamic than it really is. Yes, we've got bass boost and bass sculpting. If you look at the bass on at 60%, you can see it's got the same mid bass as bass on at 80%, but it's holding the upper bass, and then very little difference at maximum volume between bass on, bass off. That's a clue to the sculpting that's actually going on. And if we overlay them to see what's actually changed in the actual tuning, not just the fact that it's going louder, we've got a bass boost 350 hertz and up from 40%, same thing at 60%. But look at 80%, we don't actually have a bass boost. What you've got is it going louder because they've just tuned it that way, but you don't actually get a real bass boost. And as you can see, almost the same at maximum volume, with a margin of error for those little bit of differences between bass on, bass off. Even without the bass boost, you can see it's already bass heavy anyway at lower volumes, 60% and above. Well, it's still worth using because you do get the maximum bass. You certainly at 60% get a bass boost, and in 80% just means you're getting more volume. Side on, that means facing the tweeter, it's noticeably brighter. You are facing the tweeter, no surprises is there. You can see the same thing happening, bass on, bass off. It's a volume boost really, and by the time you hit 80%, there's no actual more bass to be had. To be fair, there's a fraction more, as you can see, at maximum volume. Probably nothing you're actually going to hear, but if you really want to maximize bass and volume, you can see, put bass on. In terms of the actual frequency response, we've got dips just before the 2 kilohertz, again 4 kilohertz, and then peaks in between them. It's a bit wavy. It's bass heavy at lower volumes. It's going to thin out as you go up the volume steps. So we got X-Bass mode. That was interesting, and it's never a complete story. Oh, thank you Tribit and Soundcore for giving us lots of speakers that we're loving. They're giving us great value. Just a little bit down on the bigger brands, but the gap is so small we don't really care most of the time. But what I will say on this speaker, and I'm saying all the time now, and it's really frustrating me, is you get different modes, different EQ, press it. Obviously they think you love pressing buttons, but Bose don't. And it just goes louder. When it goes louder, you hear that as a more dynamic sound. It's a trick they use. Now, there is a little bit more going on, but it's not a complete, that's not the whole story. So you do get a little bit of bass depending on the volume, but most of what you're hearing is actually extra volume. So when we normalize, we see what's actually happening. It's already bass heavy, as you can see, at lower volumes. So do you really need it at lower volumes? Probably not. And there is a big difference in actually when you turn this around, 360 degree speaker, yes, but that's kind of bright and that's kind of dull. And that's how I'm going to test it with angle on. That's the fairest way because that's in between front on and side. If we're going to say, well, you're going to be listening all round, then that's a fair test. Just know that does change quite a bit depending on the angle you listen to, where it's much more consistent and you have to listen for there are differences if you listen to them, but it's far more consistent. It's very consistent actually, listening all round. So that's how I'm going to do the testing. You should know that. They are 360 degree speakers, and apart from when it's like one driver just firing up like the, it's the mini rigs, where it's a true 360 degree experience. We've got tweeters here that change it, and we have little protrusions, and it's downward firing, not upward firing. This means the frequency response does suffer. Don't expect a flat frequency response in any way with these. I don't think you should at all with Bluetooth speakers. It's not hi-fi that's made for certain types of rooms, but certainly not. So these two speakers do suffer with peaks and dips. Just know that. If you're listening, if you want a flat frequency response, these aren't the ones. In terms of low-level listening, as you can see, there's far more control with the Bose that's consistent between volume steps, whereas this has some control at low volumes, but then you get suddenly a lot more volume, and it's squeezed more into the upper volumes. So you've got more consistent control, especially at lower volumes with the Bose, which you don't have with the Tribit Stormbox Pro. When you've hit 80%, there's a huge change in the sound now at higher volumes. Where it's consistent at low volumes, there's a huge change at louder volumes. Dramatically drops the highs from 80% onwards on the Bose, completely changing what had till then been a very consistent sound. Whereas on the Tribit Stormbox Pro, it drops its bass more, but it's doing it from 60%. That's why you're going to need X-Bass at the louder volumes rather than the lower volumes to get a bit more bass, a bit more volume. Just know there's changes in how these sound. So get straight into low-level listening. I'm doing that at about 40% volume. This one goes louder quicker, so 40% volume is 50% on the Bose. The Bose, it doesn't really make, unless you catch one of those protrusions down there, it's very consistent all around. It doesn't matter how you have it. I've got it on axis, that's front on, whereas I'm doing it on, say, 45 degrees between front and side. Because of how much it changes, the fairest way for me is measure it, let you listen to it at an angle, that way on. Just know how I'm doing it to keep it as fair as possible, 40% volume. Just to remind you, I'm doing 40% with X-Bass off. It's already bass heavy at lower volumes. Don't need a bit more X-Bass, but you do need it as you go up in volumes. So we'll do that on my next comparison at 70%, when I'll be turning on for 70% and maximum volume. Not just because you get a bit more bass, it's because you get a bit more volume. Anyway, that old trick. The Bose, we said, you know, don't expect flat frequency response, expect some waves. The Bose has a notable dip between 2 and 4 kilohertz. That could affect some of your clarity. And then 4 to 6 kilohertz. That is the presence region. And that's exactly where the Bose has a peak, but the Tribit Stormbox Pro has a dip. Against that, as you get into the higher end, into the harmonics, 12, 13 kilohertz and above, you've got peaks on the Bose. So at that point, it becomes a lot stronger. And depending on your ears in the tracks, may or may not sound significantly clearer or more airy. Now, they call this, you know, they're saying this has a subwoofer. We know it's not a subwoofer, but hey, if it plays lows, that's fair enough. You can say that. But actually, look, this is like nearly 3 times the price. That's what you got. It's already close. That's already a win in value terms for this Stormbox Pro. It is quite close. However, they're saying subwoofer, but the Bose is more bass heavy. It's more bass heavy basically from 300 hertz down. That's basically all of your bass, except for a bit of mid bass. There's a bass peak around the 90 hertz where it is stronger on the Stormbox Pro. But overall, that's a warmer sound because it's got, you know, significantly more bass, and that alone is going to make that sound maybe a bit more clearer to you, or you, as I would do, would describe that as a bit thinner. But that's completely will change depending on how you listen. It'll become even brighter if you listen to it. If you listen to it side on and front and back. it's going to sound significantly more, a little bit more muffled, to be frank. But I would say not that much between them. I do think the Bose sounds better, but not by 6 million miles. And that's a third of the price. And of course, you could have two of them in stereo or party mode. So that's where we're coming from. I'm not saying this is not about, oh, which one here is better. I do think that sounds better. You may not think so. I do think it sounds better, but not by a huge margin. And it's 3 times the price. Who's the winner? If it's sound only, it's the Bose. If you take any amount of value into that equation, it's the Tribit Stormbox Pro. We're going to go up in volume. And as I said, they do change a lot depending on the volume. This Bose is far more consistent, and it won't change that much till 80%, and then it will change completely. Whereas the Stormbox, it does change as it drops some of that bass, and then you've got to put X bass on. Remember, it's going to make a difference whether you put X bass on or not. This is how I'm testing, and I think is the best way to listen. You may disagree. Lots of people do. I'm going to give you a sound comparison now, matched at 70% for the Tribit Stormbox Pro, and actually they were about the same volume now.
Baby, this is all that I feel. Give it all to you, 'cause it's real. You're what I need to succeed, 'cause I love the appeal. Oh, let me show you. Come on, let me show you what it really feels like. Come on, let me hold you all night. Come on, let me show you what it really feels like. Come on, let me hold you all night. Come on, let me show you what it really feels like. Come on, let me show you what it really feels like. You're the one to make me feel right, 'cause your love is always on my mind. I just can't resist the way kiss. I need you all the time. Baby, this is all that I feel. Give it up to you, 'cause it's real. Take my heart, my love, I don't care, 'cause I know the deal. Come over tonight, let me show you what I'm all about.
It was quite close at lower volumes. Now there's quite a bit of difference. This is now brighter and thinner compared to maybe sounding a bit more muffled because of that in an A-B, but it's not really muffled. To me, that's more natural, but it may sound more muffled in a quick A-B like that, but clearly warmer and more bass heavy. There's a clear difference now. If you like a leaner or a warmer sound, you're going to pick one over the other, or if it's just about price, look away now, you know which one you're buying. At low volumes, there was more mid-bass in a little peak around 90 hertz on the Stormbox Pro. Now, the Bose dominates bass everywhere. There's no, that's why I'm saying it's leaner, thinner sounding, because all from 300 hertz down, the Bose dominates the bass. Hey, that's the Bose sound signature. You should already know, if you get a Bose, what to expect. The Bose, one of its signatures is a 3 to 5 kilohertz dip, but it does balance that with around the 8 kilohertz boost. You're in danger of getting in trouble if your tracks tend to be on the sibilant side. It's going to enhance that. If they're not prone to sibilants, that's going to sound a lot clearer. It's going to cut through the mud. What are you saying? It sounds a bit muddy against that. To me, in real life, that sounds more natural. Just know, it's not a natural tuning. It just sounds natural. I think they've balanced, the warm bass with that 8 kilohertz push, which for me does work better than, I know, into around the 12, 13 has become really popular to push. It works for electronic music a lot because they tend to be very rolled off in that area. Anyway, in the real world, even though I'm saying it's warmer in this A-B, because this sounds a bit bright and thin, but it still sounds nice. It still is a decent listen. But I do prefer, it was closer at low volumes, but I do prefer these volumes, the Bose Revolve. Actually, I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I do, given the price. But it's not a million miles, and I gotta keep saying, 2 of those still cheaper than that. That's the real question. Then it's a different equation. But if in a straight A/B, and we're trying to see where we are with that, it's not a Bose Revolve, although the sound signature is different, and you may simply prefer the leaner sound and the fact that you can tailor it simply by turning it. And as we'll get on to later, you can go into the app, you can set your own custom EQ. You cannot do that. You do get app support with the Bose, but you cannot set your own EQ. I think that's all my notes at 70%, which leaves us with the headroom test, the maximum volume test, 100% volume. And I've already mentioned how they change dramatically as you got the volume steps. So let's see where we are. So who goes loudest? It's the Tribit Stormbox Pro, but major differences now at maximum volume. The Bose is holding on to its bass till you hit 100 Hertz, but big roll off 2 kilohertz, so very mids focused now. Whereas the Stormbox Pro, though, does have roll off in the bass, and it's got big peaks in the highs. The difference between the two of them, between 2 and say 5 kilohertz, it's almost weird. Exactly where we have a boost on the Pro version 2, and that's a big boost. We got a big dip for the Revolve Plus. So they sound so different at maximum volume. Technically, we're 4 decibels up in terms of actual volume for the Stormbox Pro due to the massive peak. But in terms of if you still want to hold on to some bass, overall 2.5 decibels more bass on the Revolve, but very muddy because of the big roll off. Just to show you, if we actually look at the original track, who's more accurate here? They're both as inaccurate as each other. A massive boost where there isn't a boost on the original track for the Stormbox Pro, and a massive dip where there's no dip for the Bose Revolve. And note the other big peak, 8 kilohertz around there for the Stormbox Pro, doesn't exist on the original track. You can see the Bose does hold its bass, it's actually boosted bass still, till 100 Hertz. But massively rolled off already now for the Stormbox Pro. So, I mean, that was dramatic. The difference, you know, we're kind of generally used to, they take off the bass and they add to the highs and it becomes very screechy and they all sound the same. Not so here. So Bose are trying to hold on to as much bass as it can. It's doing that by a massive roll off from 2 kilohertz. Making it sound very muffled. But hey, if you just want that bass, you're just listening to drums or something. Well, it still has highs, but anyway, won't get into that. But very muffled. Whereas that drops all its bass, sounds very bright and thin. So, horses for courses, you're going to like one or the other. Just know neither of them, none of them are ever going to, you know, it's all about trying to give you volume normally, but Bose are trying to give you their sound signature at the same time. So they're trying to hold on to some of that bass. The downside is no clarity, and obviously if they're going for volume, and that's why there's a lot more volume. I mean, it's about 4 decibels in real terms, 4 decibels more in volume. The thing to remember, you know, we're giving you these peak measurements, 99, 97 decibels. It's because I'm measuring it on axis. You've got to remember, it's giving out sound all round. So if you was to measure all round, you'd expect to get 3 or 4 more decibels, depending. Yes, depending on, because that's got tweeters, it's going to be slightly different. Just remember, you can't do an apples to pears, apples to oranges, whatever it was, comparison between on-axis only drivers and drivers that are firing all round, because that's where some of the sound power is going. And you're buying these, I presume, because you're at a party or something and people are all around, and that's what matters, the all around, and then it's going to be dramatically louder once you're around the back of traditional speakers that are firing on axis only. So don't get carried away. What I'm saying is, with these peak measurements, the reason is it's giving out sound all around. It's got tweeters on the Tribit Stormbox Pro. For me, it helps with some clarity, but the issue here is it dramatically changes the sound, because depending if you're on axis or off axis to the tweeters, and actually it doesn't even give it that much more of width as you would expect. To me, it still sounds quite narrow. So you don't get the benefit if you're thinking, oh, it's just going to sound more spread out. Actually, there's not much in it between the two. I don't think it sounds wider because of that at all, to be frank. I would point out again, the Bose is not muffled in the real world. It's warm, but there is clarity there. And actually, it's if you're listening to that on its own, it sounds quite tight. The more I've listened to this, actually, I really like it. Yes, it's a lot of money. And immediately other speakers come to mind, like the Mini Rig and the Middleton, if you just want but I like the design. It's compact. It actually feels quite nice in the hand. Rubberized on the top. But we'll get into specs in a minute, and it's a very old-fashioned speaker. But I will say, I do personally like this. I have been listening to it. I like it. I do like a warm signature, but actually, I'm saying this is warm. I mean, there's a reasonable amount of bass, but it actually sounds quite tight. And I know a lot of you do like a tight kind of sound. You do get that with the Bose. I was surprised by that. You compare the Stormbox Pro with another one in stereo party mode. You can do the same with the Bose. But Bose will also connect with some of its other speakers that use the simple sync technology, which includes some of their soundbars. So no, you can use sort of whole room, other room systems and stuff. It will hook up to some of their other equipment, not just same model speakers or just other Bluetooth speakers like that. Some of the soundbars you can hook that up with. That could be quite useful to you. But there's a lot of old tech here. Does it matter? I'm old tech. Does it matter to you? You have to decide. I'm going to go over the specs now, quickly, which will be quite interesting. I'm calling them both the version 2. They call that Series 2. They call that upgraded. But is it upgraded? It went from aptX to SBC. Probably not. Now, the Stormbox Pro is made in China. But do you know where the Bose is made? It's made in Mexico. You can get deals on both these speakers. Generally speaking, this was around 280 quid, $330 when I checked on Amazon. 90 quid or $104. Three of those for one of those. You wouldn't want 3 because as far as I know, you can only hook 2. But in terms of value, I'm throwing it away, am I? But in terms of listening to, I'm not. I'm going to listen to it. So, money in your pocket, how much have you got? That's a question to ask yourself. This, I would imagine, a pair of these, because I like one on its own, would sound great. But hey ho, sound great, but cost me like 280 is 560 quid. Is that worth it? I would say no. But what's worth it? People will spend £100,000 on gear. So worth it to me, worth it to you, depends on your disposable income if you went to economics. Ooh. Neither of them are new speakers. They are both 2 years old, as I said. And as I go on, I'll probably be doing older and older speakers because I can't keep up with what's going on out there. Don't have enough time, but I will do what's interesting to me that I still think will be interesting to you. And I'm hoping this one will be interesting to you, not least by this is much better than my original 2 Tribit Stormbox Pros. Have they fixed the bass for all of us? It appears so. Again, I don't know if I've got a good version or a bad version. I can only go by the version I had. But I do know my others were bad versions and other people had different versions where they did have bass. This now sounds quite bass heavy. It does sound quite nice. I liked it until I heard against the Bose, which I actually preferred. That means that's fantastic value. You should know, they both support multi-point function. They both can connect to at least 2 other, because I only test it with 2. And I do test it. I'm not going by specs. They can both connect to 2 other devices at least. I think actually that does 8 devices. Well, remember 8 devices, but you can certainly have 2 devices connected at the same time and switch between them for your music. Now, battery. 36 watt hours. That's really, really good. The Bose Revolve, that's depending on, I found it hard to get a lot of specs for Bose. Depending on where you look. I'm going with 19.2 watt hours, which seemed like it was the most legit. But some people claim up to 24 watt hours. However, whatever the specs are, it doesn't seem anywhere near the battery of the Stormbox Pro. If battery life matters to you, That's a win for the Tribit Stormbox Pro. They are both SBC 5.3 Bluetooth. Talking about old tech, Bluetooth 4.1. Does it matter? Well, to me it doesn't, for how I use them, but obviously there's a lot of battery life saving tech in newer Bluetooth and stuff like that, or if you need a stronger signal, for me it's fine. Just know that's Bluetooth 4.1. Bose are milking it, given the mic behind them. Now, some of that money is going into things like you can connect by NFC. That's not an option. And we don't get it on many of these type of speakers, but that NFC is an option if you need it. I don't know why, but yeah, if you want NFC, you got it. Both do stereo pairing and both do party party connection. So it could be both playing the same or both playing left and right. But as far as I know, only with one other speaker. But I'm saying that. But you can connect to soundbars and stuff with the Bose USB-C. Well, they're all SBC, aren't they, Al? Are they? Well, I've got SBC. I just cut my nails. I can't actually open that. Trust me. I'll stick up a picture here of what's behind that. You've got SBC and you've also got USB-A out. You can use it as a power bank. Do you know what we've got? I mean, it's almost going back to the old telephones. You know, remember the ones that goes round and round and you've got numbers and you lift that handset. And now they make fake ones with digital dials. But anyway, I almost forgot what that was. That's a micro USB slot. Yes. Now, you can get, if you want to pay not only 280 quid or whatever it is, another 30 quid for a charging dock. Hey, you got the possibility, but hey, get rid of that and give us USB-C. I think we'd be a lot happier. But have you noticed also we've got auxiliary in? That's how old-fashioned it is. That surprised me, no auxiliary input for the Stormbox Pro, but you can use an auxiliary in here. Just know that's micro. Have you still got micro USB cables? Because that could be a big deal. Yes, you can get adapters, but I was shocked. Both of them can be used to make phone calls. They claim 40 watts. I mean, come on, I keep saying let's not take this serious. Just if you want to know what they actually say, 40 watts. In the handbook, it actually says 8 watts. Now, there is a big disconnect between the watts that we think they're putting out and the actual power they draw. I will say that. Now, I'm not huge on techs, on that sort of side of the tech, the engineering side, and how all that works. I have some overview, but I'm not going to pretend I'm some sort of guru for that. Is that really 8 watts? I don't know. And does it matter? No, because we just do loudness testing and all that. And there's a lot more to it than just watts. Just know I was a bit surprised they claim 8 watts. If they claim it anywhere else and there's more specs for that, let me know. Are they being brutally honest and nobody else is? Maybe. Charges at 5 volts, 1.6 amps. It's old tech. 5 volts, 2 amps. Now, the new ones come with, you can get 15 watts of charging. That's 10 watts of charging, and that's basically 8 watts of charging. No, that's the difference. That's heavier at 942 grams. That's 915 grams. That's IP67. It's dustproof. That's brilliant. You pay money for that. So they've gone all in with the dust protection. IPX7 means you can drop it into 1 metre of water for 30 minutes. But it won't float. Well, it will float, but the top will be up. So the drivers will be submerged, and even when you take it out, it won't sound very nice till all the water's gone. So, yes, it's good if you drop it in and it's protected, but not very playable like that. But we're IP55. 280 quid, $320. IP55. So, sort of dust protected, but, not as much as IP6. And sort of waterproof, but you can't drop it in the water. But sort of if it was sprayed with water, it's kind of splash proof. I don't know the size of the driver. I couldn't find out the driver on the Bose Revolve. It's a weird name here. Bose Revolve, well, I suppose Revolve Plus, Series 2. It's a mouthful, she said, but never mind. I can't put it. Is that coming out in the edit? We'll find out later. So a woofer, I don't know what size, 2 passive, I bet they're about the same size, 2 passive radiators. And that's so we've got 2 40mm tweeters, a 70mm woofer, but they call it subwoofer, and 2 passive radiators. In terms of that auxiliary and the latency, 20 milliseconds, it's not too bad, but obviously there's processing going on. We would like, well, most people who are using auxiliary are expecting no lag at all. Just know I got 20 milliseconds of lag. Streaming YouTube, they're both very good. Within my cutoff, 80 milliseconds. So 50 milliseconds, the Bose, 66 milliseconds, both pretty good. Probably won't have any lip sync issues. Just know by today's standards, that's pretty good. So again, I find that a lot. The older Bluetooth actually have better latency. But remember, it's very device specific. My device is the old Samsung S10 Plus. Yes, I know I should upgrade. Yes, I will do. Well, I'm absolutely confident it's a huge upgrade. So the app, got an app for the Tribit Storm. I'm just checking how long. I'm into 40 minutes. I'm going to have to cut this down somehow. Again, she said. I don't know if that other joke was in there. But let's see what we can get away with. So, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the EQ. So we've got an app for both. But in the app, where you can change, so you've only got you can only go between X bass on, X bass off without the app. But you've got loads of different presets in terms of sound for the Tribit, and you can customize your own. I haven't experimented with the custom EQ, but I simply don't have time for all these speakers anymore. It's not like the old days when I had a couple of speakers, loads of time, and I could mess about like that. And everyone was happy. I can't do it anymore. I'm sorry, guys. But the Bose has no chance for EQ, so that's a thumbs down there at 280 quid. Look, you've got lots to think about. Both are winners. Massive win in terms of value. It doesn't sound bad at all. Sounds pretty decent, depending on your ears and what you're after. I was surprised, and that's a lot better than the two original Tribit Stormboxes I had. I was surprised by how much I like the Bose. It seems to be one of those take it or leave it, depending on who you listen to. A lot of people are coming down heavy on this speaker. I particularly like that, and I liked it. It's got a very tight sound, which I don't normally like. Yes, it's got the warmish bass, but I find it quite clear, and I can kind of dream of. Hey, Bose, I know you're not watching, but Bose, if you're watching, send me a second one. We can do all our testing in stereo, and I could be very, very happy. So I think it's a win for both speakers, but you're going to need to get a deal on that one. I guess you're going to go straight on eBay and look at the deals. It's going to say new, unopened box or something like that. Not new or never been opened. Like that. Do we trust them? I don't know. But hey-ho. That was my review. I'm still waffling, and I'm already talking about cutting down. So I'm going to say goodbye. I hope to see you again. And I hope you got something out of this video.
What the f was that?
You boom.
It comes from China.
My speaker's got deep bass, balanced mids, and a bright high.
Yes, mine sounds exactly the same.